Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of AoS Close Ups. This week we'll take a look at the half-demon, half-mortal, but completely suicidal Wrathmongers. We'll explore the background, their rules, and the roles they have on the tabletop. Wrathmongers walk on the cusp of reality, filled with a rage so pure that their anger boils their blood. This in turn surrounds the berserker with a coppery mist that is capable of driving both ally and foe mad with homicidal bloodlust. Wrathmongers are armed with a pair of wrath flails with which they wield in lethal arcs that crunch flesh, armor, and bone alike. The path of a Wrathmonger requires the follower to surrender themselves totally to the tutelage of the chosen demagogues of Khorne, the Slaughter Priests. They are subjected to a punishing regime of conditioning and worship, and are only allowed to eat the flesh and drink the blood of those they slay. Meanwhile, the Slaughter Priest encourages them to battle one another in and out of the fighting pits, and when finally they are winnowed down to the most murderous and strong, the Slaughter Priest leads the rest on a pilgrimage of skulls, fighting many battles until they reach the Brass Cage, a Khornite shrine atop a vast mountain of skulls on the very edge of the realm of chaos. Jutting from the bony mountainside, thick brass bars rise up to form a prison within which a lake of blood bubbles and steams. A crown of spikes carved from the cage's crest cradles a vast jagged crystal of blood-red sanguinite. The devotees wade waist deep into the lake as the Slaughter Priests shout praise to the blood god. At that moment, demons of Khorne are summoned, and the aspirants are joined in battle. Those who are able to defeat the demons subjugate them to their will, becoming part man and part demon, while those who do not are ripped apart and their souls are snuffed out. The few remaining survivors soon find their flesh twist to a form more pleasing to Khorne, to include jagged fangs, bestial claws, and corded muscle. And as they leave the cage, the Slaughter Priest gifts them with Khorne's blessed demon wrought armor, and of course, their signature weapons, the Wrath Flails. From this point on, the Wrathmongers are considered revered emissaries of Khorne, fulfilling his direct will. The warriors of the Bloodbound would consider a charge from the Wrathmongers nothing short of a direct order from Khorne himself, and gladly take the opportunity to bathe in the dark aura that drives them into a violent rage. For the enemies of the Wrathmonger, this dark aura is nothing but a curse that causes brother to kill brother and turns certain victory into a self-inflicted and tragic defeat. So moving into the rules section, let's talk about the unit description. To have a unit of Wrathmongers, you need at least 5 models, and they're all armed the same. Now, this stood out to me only because the other units of 40mm models out there for other armies only need a unit of 3 to count as a unit. So I thought this was a little bit interesting that these guys require 5. I can only think it's because the box comes in 5, but some of the Liberators come in 5, and they only need 3. I don't know. It's something that stood out to me. Thought I would mention it. Also, they don't have any unit upgrades, no musician, no standard bearer, but they do have a champion upgrade, and he gets the standard +1 attack. Nothing too surprising. We then move on to the normal basic stats. We can see here that they have a movement of 5 inches. Now, comparatively, this is slow when we look across the entire range of models available, but for a Bloodbound army, this is pretty much standard issue, and they're going to be able to keep up with all the other infantry units you run. They do have a wound count of 3, they have a 5+ armor save, and a bravery of 7. These things are all pretty durable, I think, in my opinion. With 3 wounds and a 7 bravery, they're not going to lose any models. It's going to be very rare if you lose any models from a battle shock test, so that's always good. And then when we go over to the armor save, even though in the past a 5+ armor save wasn't that big of a deal, I think now it is pretty much a medium armor save, like the old 4-up. So that's just my opinion of things. I think the 4-up's a new heavy armor, especially when we consider all the different things that can give that unit a boost to their armor save. We then look at their other stats here. They have a 2-inch range, they have an outstanding 4 attacks, they hit on 4s, wound on 3s, have a rend characteristic, which is really important, and do 1 wound apiece. So next we're going to move on to the abilities of the Wrathmongers. And right off the bat, we can see that it pays to be aggressive. The Wrath Flails themselves give you a bonus that on the charge you get +1 to hit. So under normal circumstances, this means you're going to be hitting on a 3-up. The next ability is the Crimson Haze ability, and this is going to amplify all other combatants besides the Wrathmongers themselves, as they're already counted as having this bonus. And the bonus, of course, is it gives every model, friend, or foe a +1 attack. So this is something we'll talk about in the next section, but it's a very good ability. We then move on to Blood Fury, which I believe is the most substantial rule that these guys bring into play and is really going to define their role on the tabletop. And it states, anytime a Wrathmonger dies, you choose any enemy model within 2 inches of the removed model and have it attack immediately as if it belonged to your army. You can even have it attack itself, and this is something you definitely want to keep in the back in your back pocket as we move on to the next section. So how does the Blood Fury ability make or break the Wrathmongers on the table? Well, I think it really defines them as the perfect unit to run into super killy characters. Now, at a minimum, they're going to have 21 attacks that are at +1 to hit on the charge, so on average, you should be doing at least 9 wounds before those armor saves start rolling. And then don't forget that those armor saves are going to have a -1 rend ability penalty against them. So that in itself isn't going to kill any of those super killy characters like the Glotkin or Nagash or anything else you could probably think about that's in that type of league, but it's certainly going to do a couple wounds, and then the best part is only to come. As those super killy characters get to then become super killy and kill a lot of those Wrathmongers off, you can then sit back and revel in the power of Khorne as you watch those killy generals turn the blade on themselves. What better weapon to take out the Celestant Prime or Scarbrand than the Celestant Prime and Scarbrand itself? So this is something I think you should really consider, and probably the real reason you're bringing Wrathmongers in a Bloodbound army. Now, as if to counteract this absolutely amazing ability, the Wrathmongers also come with that Crimson Haze ability, which is really good, but it can also become a thorn in your side. If you're able to cleverly move, you can have it to where the Wrathmongers are only benefiting your units rather than your opponent's units also. But that's going to require you to be cognizant of your opponent's positioning and your own positioning. Some of the ideas are maybe running some Blood Reavers 3 inches ahead of the Wrathmongers, having the Blood Reavers charge, and then moving and running the Wrathmongers just into range so that they give the bonus to the Blood Reavers but deny it to whoever they're facing. If you're not careful though with your movement and your opponent's pretty clever, it is possible for your opponent to maximize the effectiveness of the +1 attack from the Wrathmongers and then killing the Wrathmongers when it's no longer beneficial for them. So it's something you just have to play a little bit more carefully around, whereas the other ability, Blood Fury, you just have to suicide your Wrathmongers into whatever killing model you are looking to either remove or at least severely dent. I would, however, caution sending your Wrathmongers into any unit you don't plan on attacking first, and of course, avoid getting charged, because this will only improve your opponent's unit and hasten the Wrathmonger's demise. I would stay clear of units whose strength are the amount of attacks they generate. The Wrathmongers will find themselves bogged down after the charge and really see themselves attritioned away, and they'll weep at the sight of the inefficient use of that Blood Fury ability on these relatively worthless chumps, such as many of the old world units that really depend on having lots of models contributing their individual attacks to bring enemies down. Finally, I want to touch on the War Scroll Battalion called the Bloodstorm. Now, if you're really in love with Wrathmongers and you just have to have yourself 3 units of Wrathmongers, then you should really be using this War Scroll Battalion. It comes with free abilities, 2 of them exactly. The first is Coalescent Fury, the next is Storm of Gore. Now, Coalescent Fury says that when you hit on 6s or above, this will allow you to make an additional attack against the same model. So with a minimum amount of attacks, you should generate approximately 3 additional attacks in any given turn. So again, this is not going to be game changing, but it's kind of one of those why not bonuses if you're going to be taking this many Wrathmongers. The next is Storm of Gore, and this is actually really powerful. It becomes a cementing force really among your many different other bricks that you have spread across the field of battle, and it's going to allow you to ignore battle shock tests as long as any units are within 8 inches of a model in this formation. The formation itself gets protection from shooting also by inflicting a -1 penalty to any unit shooting at them. Now this is a pretty insane ability to have if you're running this many Wrathmongers. There's no rule that says you have to keep these units within X amount of inches of one another. You can have them evenly spread out across the board helping your whole army ignore battle shock until these guys die. And then to make things even worse, your opponent's going to have a little bit harder time killing these guys from afar, which is probably the quickest and most efficient way your opponent's going to be looking to get rid of these guys. So again, this is a fantastic War Scroll battalion. If you're running that many Wrathmongers and you spent that much money on them, then you shouldn't even be hesitating to roll in on this War Scroll battalion. And that will conclude this episode of AoS Close Ups. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to comment below about what unit you'd like to see next. And thank you for watching.